How to improve communication among team members. This video is super cool. I'm gonna invite you into the behind the scenes a little bit, into a live workshop that I facilitated on the art of remote connection. I'm gonna share two particular methods, insights, ideas that you can immediately take and apply in your own context to improve communication on your team. They fall under the big buckets or categories of narrative writing and narrative connection. The second one actually came live in this Q&A. Anyway, let's just get into it and cut to this clip with the group. Okay, I realized teeny little micro bit of context before we bring you into Zoom, into this conversation. So this was at the end, open-ended question, ask me anything time with me and Will at the end of this workshop. But this was a 60-minute workshop that we had a half-hour Q&A, and this is in the half hour after that. Like, these are people who stuck around for a long time, people who are connectors, leaders and educators who are committed to making connection and engagement really easy. The other tiny bit of context that you have to know is if you go to our website, on the big splash homepage is communication and connection is hard. And we help leaders, educators, and events make it easy, right? So that is what I get to do on the planet. And so I've thought a lot about this question, and I really love how the insights were distilled and came up live in the moment with the group. So let me shut my mouth and invite you into Zoom.
I just had this thought I've been thinking about a lot, where there's this kind of popular tongue-in-cheek thing that people say where it's like, oh, that meeting could have been an email. So I've been thinking, and in large part based on your videos and stuff, I'm thinking what if it was always oh, I wish this email was a meeting? What if, I think it's what if we designed meetings that people wanted to attend to instead of being that, it's so cool now to just be indifferent and annoyed all the time. But that's not how my brain works. I was my thing is what if this email could have been a meeting? This is something I've been thinking about. It's how to flip it on its head and make meetings that people want to attend and want to participate in.
Josh, an important distinction that was given to me many years ago by a colleague of mine said, email is for information, telephone and in person is for communication.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that.
So thinking about an email being information and thinking about in-person interaction being communication. There are so many meetings that are information downloads, which people then say, oh, I could have read that in an email, or I could have watched that in a video. And so our job as connectors is then to go, how can I make it so that this information can be interactive and so that we can contribute and create something together when our bodies are together and we're thinking about it all together at the same time. So that distinction is useful for me, and maybe it might be useful for you when you're then sharing that with a leader who's like, okay, we're going to bring them all together and I'm going to tell them the State of the Union for 45 minutes. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Can we start with some connection first? Right? We've got all these valuable people together.
One thing that's showing up for me is I love that idea, that framing, Josh, of not that I love let's have more and more and more meetings, but what if we make the meetings that we do have, or maybe even trim them down, but make them really, really matter? So Will's saying that emails are for information, meetings are for communication. Amazon's figured something out about this. I was working with some folks at Amazon, and one of the women on the workshop that I was working with teaches, her whole job is teaching narrative writing at Amazon. And they have a whole team of people that teach narrative writing because as you get higher up in meetings, in leadership at Amazon, up to the first half hour of a meeting could be spent in complete silence, reading a narrative description of what they're reading, what they're going to be talking about, what they're going to be meeting about. And so actually combining the best of both worlds of what if we actually made, if most meetings, like Will said, are unfortunately informational, and there's not much communication or consensus or collaboration or decision-making happening, what if we just leaned into that and recognized, hey, there is information that we need to share. Let's put it in writing and play some nice classical music for 10 minutes and have everybody read the exact same 3 pages which is a really fast way to digest information, much faster than a verbal back and forth or presentation, right? We can read a lot faster than somebody can speak sometimes. What would happen if we actually just started off our meeting in silent reading time and then shifted gears into discussion once everybody was on the same page? Ginger, what you got?
Chad and Will, so freaking amazing. Woo! Okay, like it's that thing at the power plant, right? Anyway, narrative connection just came up for me. How would you two, maybe that's a term you already use, but narrative connection, I mean, this is totally my wheelhouse too, so it's so wonderful. Will and Chad, how would you define narrative connection?
Connection through story, not synopsis, number one. Most of the time we speak in synopsis. It takes a little bit more intention for those who aren't natural storytellers. It takes a little bit more deliberation to, is that the right word? Takes being a little bit more deliberate to be sharing information in stories and connecting through stories. So one thought that came up for me, I finally found the source of this quote. I've been saying this because I love this idea that specificity is the soul of narrative. Sometimes synopsis really general, story gets really specific. And I think that's part of the reason that stories light up people's brain. It's part of the reason when I'm, pre-COVID, was standing in front of an audience of 8,000 people sharing content, sharing ideas, which I was super passionate about, sharing with tons of enthusiasm. Some people were like, some people were like, ooh, glued in. But when I shifted and I started telling a story, I could actually visually watch 7,522 people lean forward. I actually watched it happen. So like you read whatever research you want on synopsis versus story. I watch people's bodies move when I tell a story as opposed to when I'm sharing an idea. Maybe even now in this moment, as I'm talking about speaking with 8,000 students at the University of Wisconsin and seeing them lean in, right? Bunch of 17 to 22-year-olds who have plenty of other things on their mind in that moment, watching them lean in when you tell a story. And I think the reason for that is, and Will and I, one of the tools that we teach at the very top of the pyramid is to create empathy. And I think when we tell stories, it allows people to see the world as your world as you describe it, and then to compare their world and parts of it, and it actually creates a Venn diagram. And so narrative connection is your narrative here, and somebody else's narrative here, and they're two little me bubbles floating around in cyberspace. And when narrative connection happens, shloop, those two little bubbles become a Venn diagram, and there's a little sliver of shared experience, and I would call that maybe a connection in this moment. That's so good. It's such a good live conversation, the way that it came up, starting with, how can we avoid meetings that should have been an email and kind of flip that dynamic on its head and make people look forward to meetings, channeling some wisdom from Amazon and this idea of narrative writing, and then followed up with Ginger's perspective of just thinking about narrative connection. What does that mean? Didn't expect all that to come out, but I hope that both the narrative writing and the narrative connection ideas and component help you be better storytellers, better communicators on your teams. If you want help doing that, that's what all our video tutorials on the channel are designed for. And I get to work with universities and organizations and lead workshops and events. And so if you want to reach out, booking information is below as well. Have an awesome day.